Hello, it's Kimrix coming at you with another Gigantic video. Since the Steam release, I've been pretty much spending the bulk of my time in Gigantic in either solo or duo queues. As expected, the massive influx of players have brought in many people who just have no idea what they're doing. So I've put together a short list of 5 things I'd like to impart to these people, my fellow solo queue warriors. Let's see if I can't help you in your climb to the top. Number 1. Stick together. I know it seems common sense, but unless you're using communications either in-game or otherwise, it is best to stick together. People have thrown around the description that Gigantic is a MOBA, and it's a little misleading. Most MOBAs tend to be multi-lane, and the meta really calls for people to split up so they can gain an advantage in EXP as well as any kind of internal game economy. But the only economy in Gigantic is energy gained, and if all you do is engage on an enemy team solo and die over and over again, you're pretty much just handing energy out. I know that some strategies call for the team to split up. If you want to try to pull a team to a creature that gets attacked so that you can strike somewhere else, it's a pretty good idea. But in rounds when in-game communication is pretty much minimal, it's not easy to notice when an Ashlyn tries to pull an enemy team away from a contested point. It's also not easy for that Ashlyn to know if their team is just missing too much health to achieve anything. So until you find a core group of 4 or 5 people, numbers are power. Build your character's core strength towards group fighting and victory will be that much closer to your grasp. Number 2. Know your effect animations. I certainly have a few criticisms for Motiga and their animation choices in the game. It certainly feels harder to track what's going on in larger brawls. Now this might be by design, as more and more chaos ensues, shouldn't it be harder to tell what's going on overall? And wouldn't it be considered a learnable skill to track more of the things happening? It's all debatable of course, but as someone who usually mains a healer or Charnok or anyone that has some form of large AoE, I've noticed that my own team tends to be just as much a detriment to my gameplay as the enemy. I mean, I certainly don't know why a Gnosis would prefer to run out of my healing circle while fighting, especially if the enemy isn't really walking away from him, or why an HK would use a pushback mortar shortly before my meteor lands on the things hitting him. But it's moments like these that shape whether or not you're going to win or lose an engagement, so it's best to pay attention to the things going on around you and attempt to maximize your potential for survival as well as damage output. Number 3. Positioning. Though it is important to stick together, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be right next to each other at all times. Unless, I don't know, you're fighting against me and I'm on Margrave, in which case please stand shoulder to shoulder. Otherwise, you should always be thinking about the map you're on and places you can go to both protect your team as well as keep yourself out of danger. I know a lot of the new players sort of trash talk Amani, mostly because the ones they see don't really help team fights. But in games where the Amani is able to keep vision on where the fight is occurring, as well as go completely unencumbered, you'll find that most team fights go in favor of the Amani team. Now this of course is a two-way street. In situations like these, with artillery type characters like HK or even Beckett, it's important that the frontliners utilize that cover, and don't take fights outside of line of sight. In these situations, one of 2 things will occur. You'll either get pulled into the enemy's kill zone and get alpha struck, or you'll force your supports to move forward, out of their safe positions, and serve them up for the enemy team to kill just after you. Positioning in this game can be a rather complex idea. It involves team comp, the map you're on, the build the teams are going, as well as even strategies that are being utilized. I'd certainly like to go into it further, but I'd rather this video not be 20 minutes long. Or maybe I'll make it a multi-parter. Number 4. Survive. I always thought this would be a no-brainer, but the amount of people I'm watching who stay in combat with little to no health, or even just stay out of position in that state, all this tends to do is take all that hard work your team is putting in to try to gain more kills and more energy than the enemy team, and it gives the enemy a chance to even the score very quickly. On most characters, it's more worthwhile to go heal up and then return to combat, bolstering the front line with people ready and able to fight, or to be able to successfully cover your team's retreat without adding your name to the roster of the dead. And during the process of retreat, if you path it out correctly, you might even be able to drag a few of the bloodthirsty enemies through your own team's gauntlet of firepower. Number 5. Learn the energy bar. Some of the people I play with, and some of the people I actually run into in-game and manage to talk to, they still don't understand how this core game mechanic works. It is the core of Gigantic, and before any play that you attempt, you probably should glance up and check it. The information on it about how behind or in the lead you are is very important, as well as the enemy team respawn timer, which should be checked every time before you try to capitalize on a good team fight. If you're 30 points up, it might not be the best idea to go a little gung-ho against a full enemy team that's around their creature. You'll basically be fighting 6v5, and if you fail, the point swing that goes to the enemy team could change the entire course of battle. You could turn a shutout into an epic comeback. But if you're down on points, the need to go all in is just that much greater. And in pub play, that energy bar should be the core deciding factor as to whether or not your ball of death that is your team should either be on the offense or the defense. No other factor in the game holds more weight, so learn to check it constantly. It should inform every decision. With these 5 tools in your belt, hopefully you see a dramatic improvement to the quality of your game. And with any luck, if enough people listen to this, maybe I'll see improvements in my games. Thanks for listening. I'm Kimmerix. You should see my little ARC tag pop up if you want to hit me up in-game. And if you're looking for more gigantic content, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you all in the arena.